What I want to do now is focus in on a few of the paintings in the show and tell you some interesting stuff about them. Some of them I think have particularly interesting stories in terms of what inspired them or how did I make them. Um, if you are not an artist, you might find this entertaining and also interesting because it kind of gets you inside the brain of an artist. And for those of you who are artists, hopefully you'll get some new ideas for your own work. This can actually be educational. So over the summer, I had a show at a local gallery. The show was called Face to Face, which is the title of this painting. Face to face, these two people having a face to face conversation. I saw these two people in a pub in England, and they were deep in conversation. And I was, like across the room from them, and I pulled out my camera and kind of held it in my lap, sneaking a few photographs in. I didn't want them to know I was taking their picture. Um, and when I got home, I decided I wanted to paint them, but I decided I wanted to bring them back to North Carolina. So I thought about this place in North Carolina. I thought about this photo that I had taken. This is a town on the shore of North Carolina. And so I combined these two people, and I had 4 or 5 photos of them. So I kind of took little bits from all of the photos, put them together, changed the background, and here's the painting face to face. So here are the same two people in North Carolina now, in a pub in North Carolina. And oh, and I just wanted to say, just in case anybody is like getting sticker shock here, this painting does have a lot of dollars attached to it. Not all the paintings in the show are quite that high. So I stuck this one in next. It's another water lily. And you can see there's a big differential in the pricing, just so you know. Okay. So this painting, what I wanted the story behind this one is I saw this garlic drying. It was in a little CSA kind of farm that I went to a couple of years ago, and the garlic was drying in this little barn thing. And I just thought it was beautiful, the shapes of it, the shapes of the bulbs themselves and the braids. The light was lovely. And I decided I wanted to paint them. Here's the painting. Okay, you can take a look at that. Now, here's what I want to say to you. This painting right here is what we refer to as a high key painting, which means that all of the colors, the darkness or lightness, which we refer to using the word value, is rather light. So these values on the top of my value scale are what these values are comprising most of the painting. Not only that, this painting is exploring all the different colors of white. So if you look at this painting, you can look even at this one main big bulb of garlic and look at all the variations. This is a bluish white and a purplish white and a goldish white and a pinkish white and a whitish white. I was just playing with those very light values of color and infusing as many different colors into the whites as I could. So much fun to do. Okay, here's an interesting place that I saw down in the Virgin Islands. I wanted to make a painting of this beautiful old weathered yellow gate. Here's what I was actually seeing in this place. And what you can see is that the yard had a lot of, there was a lot of very lush tropical foliage, and there was just a lot of stuff kind of um, making the image a little hard to read. And so to make a painting that was easier to read, I took out anything that was extraneous, anything that wasn't essential to my painting or the story that I wanted to tell, and here's the painting. So I just wanted to show you. I frequently simplify my images considerably like this so that my viewer can really appreciate the place and the feeling and the story that I want to tell. Okay, a lovely swan, obviously. Here's what I saw. Look how dull the color is. This is where I was. Um, Sometimes I really like dull color, grayish color, but I really wanted to punch up the color to make this painting. So I added a whole lot more color, and I think it makes a more compelling painting. And this is a fun one. Also, another place I saw down in the Virgin Islands, which is where I get the inspiration for a lot of my paintings. And so, okay, laundry, yeah. I love painting laundry. I love the shapes in laundry. Here's what I was looking at. Here's all that laundry. And so here's what I want to say to you with laundry. It's not going to dry real well if there's no breeze. See the way it's all hanging straight down? If there's no breeze, and there's no light on it, it's going to take all darn day to dry. So when I made my painting, I puffed out a little breeze. So I changed the angles and the curves. So I puffed a little breeze on it. I put some light on the laundry. And now it looks like it's going to dry. And it's also, I think, a more compelling image because it's got the movement and the suggestion of that nice, bright, glowing light, like the light's coming right through those pieces of laundry. And here's a fun one. This is a very recent painting from a recent workshop that I taught. This is actually a place up in Maryland near where I used to live. Here's my source photo. Do you see the source photos taken during the day? And here's my painting with the moon rising. So this is something that I like to do now and then, not infrequently. Just take a daytime photo and imagine what that place looks like as the moon's rising or even in the middle of the night, and just change my whole painting around. Okay, in June, I was up in Delaware, staying on the shore there. And I woke up early, early, early one morning and saw the most amazing, spectacular sunrise. Here's what I saw. It really was that spectacular. Um, but if you look at the picture, you can't see a whole lot about what's going on down here in the foreground. And I knew because I was staying right there, there were all kinds of interesting sea grasses and native plants of all kinds. So I used a photo. This is pretty much the same view, photo taken during the day. The photo that I took when I woke up early, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I combined the best bits from both oops, where'd that painting go? To make the painting. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, I know why. Here's my little friendly color wheel. I know why I put this in. What I wanted to say, for those of you who are artists in particular, the thing that makes this painting really compelling is that I took two colors, orange, which is right here. Can you see upper left? And then go straight across the color wheel to the lower right. That's blue. We call these complementary colors because they're across each other from the color wheel. When you smack orange next to blue, it's really brilliant. And it's really hard to look away. And it really helped me to create that feeling and that spectacular moment that I saw. Now, also speaking about complementary colors, where'd that go? If you look here at red, this time we're going to start at red and move across to green, okay? Another pair of complementary colors right here in this painting. What I did was I took red, I gave this guy a red bandana, and a red ribbon around his neck for his whistle. And I almost created a red circle. It's broken, yes, but my viewer, you guys, can kind of travel around in a circle on this red pathway that I've created to keep you looking at his face and his whistle, which is what the story's about. But what did I add into the painting in addition to the red? The complement of green in the background. So I'm using what I know about colors and how they interact to create an image, a painting that is more interesting than the photo I started out with. Here's the guy. You can see I cropped out most of the photograph. Do you see a red bandana or a red ribbon? No. Do you see the green in the background? No, it's not there. I put it in to make a better painting. Here's the painting. It's a rather small framed painting, by the way. Okay, and now this is an interesting photograph. I was just showing this to a class just a few days ago. When I see something interesting, like a big old glorious head of cabbage, I have this habit of aiming my camera straight at it, and then the head ends up smack in the middle of my photo. And I don't usually want it smack in the middle of my painting. So watch what I did with this photo. Painting number 1. I moved the head of the cabbage to the right and down. Painting number 2, I moved it to the right and upwards. Painting number 3, I moved it to the left and upwards. Not only that, I made a horizontal painting, a vertical painting, and a square painting, all from the one photograph. I hope these stories are interesting to you. Okay, here are the the paintings now. This one is not in the show because it actually lives in Illinois now, but this one's in the show, and this one's in the show, and so I can share them with you. I've got a couple of more small framed ones. And here's what I want to say. All the paintings I've shown you so far were painted on paper. Pretty much all of them on a surface that we refer to as cold pressed watercolor paper. It's got a lovely bumpy texture that we watercolor painters love to paint on. These are different packages of different brands of cold pressed paper that I use. But here's another surface completely different from cold pressed paper that I love to paint on. It's called aqua board. So I'm just going to show you that's part of the packaging. And here's one of my paintings in the show on aquaboard. Aquaboard is designed to be framed without glass. Most watercolors are framed, if they're on paper, they're framed with a mat and then a piece of glass or plexiglass in a frame. With aquaboard, you can seal and varnish the surface and frame it without glass. So it looks more like an oil painting, but it still has some of that lovely glow of a watercolor. So here's that same painting in its frame, and you can see there's no glass. And here's another one on aquaboard. And there it is, framed, no glass. And another one, aquaboard, framed, no glass. It's very different, and it's a different process to paint on it. And some of you I know use aquaboard, and so you've experienced it. Okay, now here's another surface that I sometimes use, Yupo, Y-U-P-O, and it is plastic. Truly plastic. When you pick up a piece of Yupo, it's white. It feels kind of like a piece of watercolor paper, but it behaves nothing like watercolor paper because it's plastic and it's completely non-absorbent. Here's a good example of a painting on Yupo, and I just want to pull in a little closer and show you that when you paint on Yupo, because of the plastic surface, you get very interesting things happening, like these crazy runbacks and interesting textures. It's really quite an adventure to paint on this stuff. Here's a painting that's in the show, these poppies. And I just want to show you really quickly. This is how I started the painting of poppies. See, here they are, nice, bright, colorful poppies. I started it on my Yupo with a heavy, 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 dark, dark, dark layer of paint. Then on top of that dark layer, I drew the poppies. Then I took a dampened brush and touched the surface of the paint film on the Yupo, and the water just dissolves the paint, and you can lift it off and then add the color back in to create the brilliant colors on the poppies. You can't do that on regular watercolor paper. It just will not work. Here's another one on Yupo. And another one. This is a place just about 4 or 5 miles from my house in Greensboro. Yupo again. Yupo again. And here's another product, another way I like to paint watercolors. So this stuff you can see, gesso, Gesso. Gesso is used by oil painters to prime their canvases. So it's used actually to cut down the absorbency. So what I like to do is to coat my watercolor paper with a couple of layers of acrylic gesso, and it makes a whole new and very interesting surface to paint on. I kind of sometimes think about painting on gesso as sort of a halfway happy medium between painting on regular, shall we say, normal paper, and Yupo, halfway in between. It's super fun to paint on. So here's this was the very first painting you saw when we started. So this is painted on gessoed paper, as is this one and this one. The nice thing about gessoed paper is it's really easy to lift paint off, not quite as easy as the Yupo, like those poppies I showed you, but almost. So this waterfall was actually lifted off. I had painted dark-ish colors right across it, right through it, and then lifted off the paint to reveal the white of the waterfall. And I love to paint my abstracts on gessoed paper. And so here are a few of my abstracts. Some of them are framed, some of them are unframed. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so another thing I wanted to mention, I know in the beginning I said, oh my God, sticker shock for this one. Okay, so so what I just wanted to say, okay, now I'm getting back, a little bit to sort of the businessy kind of thing. If money's no object, yeah, you could get this one or this one. My figurative paintings do tend to be higher priced because it takes me so much, much, much longer to create them. But I also just want to say that in the show, there's a whole bunch of unframed watercolors, which are much more affordable, lower prices, lower shipping costs. And of course, if you get an unframed painting, you can frame it however you like. And of course, I'll make that same donation to one of those organizations. And by the way, did I mention before, you can pick where that donation from your painting would go. You tell me, and that's where I'll send it. Okay, so just to show you real quickly a few of the unframed paintings, and then I'm gonna do a bit of painting for you. So let's see, unframed. Okay, so all of these now that I'm gonna show you are all unframed. This is a lovely, beautiful lioness at the wonderful North Carolina Zoo that we have here. We've got a fabulous zoo in North Carolina. I think I have my photo that I used for this one. Check it out. Check out the title. I'm Being Followed by a Moon Shadow. Do y'all remember that song? Here's the photo I used to make it. So just to show you once again, it was a daytime photo. There are two interesting things happening here between the photo and the painting. So what I just want to point out, obviously I'm going from daytime to nighttime. What I really love here, can you see? I just love the shadow being cast by this big old tree on the side of this house. And that's what I really wanted to paint. So I took most everything out of the painting, including the tree. I thought, well, here's one thing that I sometimes believe that what I leave out of a painting can make a painting more interesting. So instead of putting that tree in, yeah, I left it out, and my viewer has to kind of, maybe ponder that for a minute. Where's that shadow coming from? Oh, yeah, there must be a tree out to the right. And I think, honestly, it makes the painting more interesting to not say everything, to not put everything in. And then, of course, there's the whole thing about changing from daytime to nighttime. So now it's a moon shadow. Here it's a sun shadow. I made it a moon shadow. Okay, here's another one on Yupo, crazy plastic paper. In a garden, obviously. Here's one of my most recent paintings. I had a lovely vacation in Greece this summer, and this was one of the places that we visited in Delphi. These are some very, very ancient ruins in Delphi in Greece. And here's another one on gessoed paper. And I'm going to zoom in a bit. Okay, yeah, if I zoom in close, this is kind of interesting. If you look right in here, you see these streaky marks? Those streaky marks are left by my brush, the way it brushed on the acrylic gesso. I brush it on quite freely and randomly, and it leaves interesting textural marks. You can see it here also in the elephant's face. Some of these marks that look like little dots are actually created by the bumpy surface of the watercolor paper that's beneath the gesso. And then the streaky kind of marks come from the two layers of brushed on gesso. So all that combines to create a fascinating, fascinating surface to paint on. Okay, this is called a vignette, by the way, where I've deliberately not taken my paint all the way into and out of the four corners of the painting. And I design those unpainted corners very carefully. We use the term interlock. So the unpainted corner shapes interlock with the main painted area of the image that's towards the center of the paper. This one is on gessoed paper also, as is this one. This is regular watercolor paper. And this one too. And I think this might be the last one to show you. This is not a watercolor. This is a giclée. It's a print, a reproduction of a watercolor painting that I made a couple of years ago. I made the painting, and then I decide I don't have many prints made from my work anymore these days. I used to have more made, but I don't really get into that very much these days. But I felt like this particular image might be good to have made into a print. So this is a giclée. It's a very good quality, very accurate reproduction from the original art. And just for fun, I'm going to show you, here's my source photo. the backstory behind this painting is that um, a few years ago, it was the month of January. There was a big full moon rising, and I went outside to look at the moon. And I looked. This is my next door neighbor's yard, and the moon was rising through the trees. And because the trees were bare, you could see the moon rising. There was no snow on the ground. Look, snow. Okay, there was no snow on the ground. Um, so I tried to take a photo of the moon, but it was nighttime. I couldn't get a decent picture. So the next day I went out and I took a photo of my neighbor's yard. Not too inspiring, is it? There's no moon, there's no night sky, there's no snow, even though it was January. We don't get much snow in North Carolina. Um, so I decided that what I wanted to do was put a moon into my painting. In other words, I was going to take this rather unattractive photograph of my neighbor's yard and add a moon, add some snow, turn it into night. And so that's what happened. So here's the end result. So it has a little bit of a feeling of all those trees. I kind of left out this stuff, which wasn't terribly attractive. But so here's the picture. So I do have a few of these reproductions of Snow Moon. And that's it.